Well, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I've just made sure that we are streaming live in the Facebook group. Today's Power Hour call, I'm joined by Coach Jay. I'm
Hi, everybody.
for those of you who haven't met me yet. So we're going to talk about prioritizing your to-do list to reduce overwhelm. And the whole purpose of these Power Hours is really just to come together informally and share together, discussing the topic at hand. We've created a big list. We asked the students about 2 months ago, what are the kind of topics that you would like us to discuss and share with you all, that you can all participate in and discuss and share together, strategies that maybe you've used, strategies that maybe you have employed with your clients, or learning what strategies you could use with your clients or even for yourself to help get through some of these challenges. And this was one that came up, the overwhelm. And sometimes this overwhelm comes up even with study, and how am I going to get, all my study done with work and kids and this and that. So we're going to talk about those things today, and we'd love to hear your input, your experience, and maybe your suggestions of tools and techniques that you come across that would be really helpful. The Power Hours are just an informal discussion for all of us to just get to know each other a little bit, to share ideas, share tools, share exercises, learn from each other, take away some really helpful things that we can use for ourselves, and also bring into our coaching sessions where applicable. So they're just 1 hour. It's not a live formal training like we will be doing next week on Monday and Tuesday. It's just for us to get to know each other a little bit and create an additional sense of community. So let's get started. We do have a couple of questions there just to prompt discussion, but for the moment, we'll switch from that to just getting to know each other. Now, please feel free to unmute yourself. If there's noise in the background, though, if you can stay muted while the noise is on, but unmute yourself when you'd like to share or talk, that would be fantastic. I'd really like to know from everybody, what's your experience with, prioritizing your to-do list? Does anyone have a great strategy that they already use to prioritize your to-do list? Yeah, would you like to share, Faye?
So I used to become very easily overwhelmed. So someone suggested to time block in a calendar instead of having a to-do list, because sometimes when I look at a to-do list, I can get easily overwhelmed as well. And I'm not sure where to prioritize things. So I've started just having a Google Calendar and just time blocking each hour out, or every so hours. And it just really helps me to have an overview of my day or my week.
Yeah.
And it helps me to get things done as well.
Awesome. Do you use color coding for like certain life areas or work?
Yeah. I'm a very visual person, so that really helps me.
Yeah, awesome. I've seen quite a few students come through the course that use those kinds of methods, and it really, really works for them. So when you find something that works for you, particularly as a visual learner, and you make it kind of exciting and pretty to look at, it's also keeping you accountable because you are blocking out that time as a non-negotiable. Like, that's really important to me. I'm going to put that time in the calendar so that I commit to it like it's an appointment that I have to pay for. Because if I don't show up, I'm going to have to pay for it in other ways maybe. And this might be in relation to exercise. If we don't kind of book in that time for ourselves to exercise, then we might feel a bit crabby and not let go of the stress of the day or the physical tension or what have you. So yeah, I think that's a really great tool. Does anyone kind of listen to that and think, oh, I just couldn't do that? Do you want to share?
Hi, everyone. I'm Donna. How lovely to meet you. This is my first engagement with you face-to-face, so it's lovely to meet you.
Welcome, Donna.
Thank you. That's lovely. Faye, that's a great idea. Thank you. I've been finishing off some yoga teacher training, and so they kind of crossed over, and I still don't finish that until the end of this week. So I've really struggled with finding the time and prioritizing finishing one course before starting the other, but it just kind of had to happen that way with other commitments. So I really like that idea of popping some time in my diary now. And the color coding sounds like a great idea for the different things that I've got going on at the moment. So thank you.
Brilliant. No, that's fair, Donna. That's really exciting. And it is a lot, especially when you're doing 2 courses at the one time. I think I've spoken to you before about how you've been. I think I've spoken to you. It's either yourself or there's another lady who's also doing a yoga course at the same time. And then they're having a bit of the same issues. So hopefully between the both of you, you'll get some good tips out of this session. So no, that's great. Does anyone else have some great tips they can recommend that they do? Chantel?
I actually have 2 teenage boys and a husband, and I kind of keep track of their schedule by color coding, and I have like a calendar for the month that you can write on with marker that I have taped up on the fridge so that I can see. I walk by it every single day, so I know exactly what's happening on those days and who's supposed to go where and what they're doing.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Kids, it's definitely adds a whole new element to trying to prioritize your time. So no, I completely get that one.
Kids have such busy social lives these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Okay, well, one of the biggest things that comes up about prioritizing your to-do list is something that, Faye, you said, sometimes just looking at a big long list seems like that's going to overwhelm you. And that's that word overwhelm. So many times it's overwhelm at how much you have to do. That is the biggest issue, more so than the things that need to be done. So Jay and I are going to share a couple of things that we usually we've learned for ourselves that we've also shared with students who've asked us, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then we'd love to hear from you what your take on overwhelm is. And then we can discuss overwhelm in terms of what's actually happening underneath overwhelm for you and your clients, and ways that we can approach explaining that, and then looking at strategies that can help your clients to reduce the overwhelm and actually feel like they're getting something done. So my example that I've got for you, which I've shared with some students in the past, just helping them reduce their overwhelm, is, of course, course study, which can be a big one for a few people. So I always like to firstly identify, and I do this with myself regardless of, what it is. So we're talking about the example of course study, but I actually use this for myself. I first will think about, why do I want to do this? And I guess that it comes down to, do I want to do it or do I have to do it? And then I would look at the language of the have to part and look at it as, do I have to, do I need to, do I choose to? Right now, obviously, there's going to be avoidable things that cause us stress or overwhelm, but there's going to be unavoidable things that might cause us stress or overwhelm. So our language around it is really important. I have to do this versus I get to do this. I choose to do this. I find that language is a really big one, because the language that we're using is really creating our internal state. Our thoughts are creating our emotions that we're constructing in the moment based on our memories and experiences and our meanings and interpretations of what's going on around us and how we internally process that. And that's different from feelings that are generated in the body. So if we think about things and we're saying negative, or we're using negative words or words that we perceive as negative, to me, that creates a feeling of stress in my body, because that's going to generate more negative language around something that I just don't want to do, or I feel like I have to do, instead of having a choice that I want to do it, or that I know choosing to do this is actually going to be a benefit because it's going to help me achieve what I want to achieve. So the different feeling state or the emotional state that we generate by our language is a big one. So I always like to just make that clear about language first. And you might, when you're listening to clients or even listening to your own self-talk, pick up the language that you're using that is actually making the situation a little bit worse in how you experience it and your attitude towards it, because that's framing your mindset. So first off, I like to just be aware of my language, but I like to ask, why is this important to me? If I have to do it, then what am I going to achieve by doing it? And would I like to get that done and out of the way? Yes, I would, because that would make me feel good. I would get that done and out of the way, and then I wouldn't be stressing about that. But then I also look at the reasons why it's important to me. And this is important because if you don't have a meaningful reason to do something, then you're going to be less likely to want to do it. Would you agree with that? Does anyone want to do anything that has absolutely no meaning to them? No, I don't, and I'm pretty sure your clients won't either. So that's kind of the first thing I like to do, is identify, why is this task important to me? And that helps me keep the meaning in mind. It's got a reason. There's a reason that I want to do this. And that reason is because I will get this out of it, or I will be able to achieve that, or because it's important to me for these reasons. And then let's take this example into course study, because this is a big one for a lot of people. Asking yourself a question, why do I want to do this course? Or why did I want to do this course in the first place? I would prefer to look at it in the present tense of, why do I want to do this course? So we're keeping it in the present moment and not looking too much further back to why we enrolled. We're looking at and reassessing, why do I now want to do this course? Whether it was last week or 2 months ago, reassessing that and tuning into the meaning of, why is this important to me? Why do I want to do this? What will I gain from this? What do I want to gain from this? What will I be able to do with this certification when I get to the end? Because all of those things, they solidify, enhance, and strengthen the meaning behind why you're doing it. And that's really important, so that we're evoking that emotional connection to it, but we're also then generating those visions of what you will be able to do when you get to the end, when you've done it, the people that you'll be able to help, seeing yourself in service of others, conducting your business, working with people who inspire you and who you get to inspire. And that, just thinking about that, evoking those emotions and creating that imagery in your mind, is all going to help your brain want to help you move towards that. So that's a really good strategy as well, is to be clear on, why is this important to me? What am I going to get out of it? What is the meaning of why I'm doing this? And then creating that visual of projecting forward of, what will I gain from this? What will I achieve from this? What will I be able to do when I get to the end of this? So it's helping you really look at the benefits in quite a powerful way. So the other thing is, when you certify, what will this enable you to achieve, right? So we've already said that. So then what I like to do is, I'm just going to read this because I've made some notes, which is based on an email that I've used to help clients, used to help students think about these things. I suggest writing down all of the things that really solidify the meaning from your heart to your head. Sorry, from your head to your heart, wrong way around there, onto the page. Because when you write things down, you're using a different part of your brain when you're handwriting down this list of why this is important to you. So taking that meaning and committing it to the page is also creating those connections that will then connect to the emotions and to the imagery of seeing yourself achieve these benefits, which makes it even more meaningful. Then you keep it visual so that you remember every day what you are committing to for the important reason of what you will gain from it. So it's constantly there reminding you of those emotions and that visual, that imagery of what you are moving towards, and you know why you're moving towards it. You know the meaning behind it and what you're going to gain from it. It's keeping it in your view, because that then keeps it in the present moment. And then remember, the juggle is only short term. It's only short term. It's a short term sacrifice for a long term gain. You could look at it that way. Then the second thing is, I create a list of the most important non-negotiable tasks each day, and I keep it to only 3 or 4 things. So Faye, you said earlier, if you have a to-do list, it's overwhelming. But the way I like to look at it, and then I love your input, everyone, is there's always going to be things to do. There's always going to be a to-do list. And if you let your to-do list run the show, your to-do list is never going to end. And every day it's going to be long, exhausting, and overwhelming. So if you sort of have two lists, you have, here's my never ending to-do list over here of things that always need to be done, that I'm always adding to, and it never feels like anything's actually getting crossed off because I'm always putting more things onto it. If you have this master list over here, right? Great. Those things, they're always going to be there. And accept that. Except there's always going to be things to do. I'm okay with that because all I'm going to do is focus on my daily list of just three top priorities, non-negotiables that are absolutely super important that I want to get done today, that I choose to prioritize and get done today. So when you take a big, huge, long list and you put it down to just 3 things or even 2 things, if you're okay with it, 4 things, but no more than that, then it's just this short little list that seems more doable to me anyway. So when you think of, if you were to write that down and prioritize, okay, well, that's my big to-do list, except that's always going to be there. Be okay with that. But then create a small little daily to-do list. How does that feel to you if you were to do that, or if you were to suggest that to a client? Jump in.
I think it would be helpful because it would feel like they're just taking a small part of it and being consistent with that little part that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're trying to get more than those 3 things, it's just like you don't even know where to start because there's just too long of a list.
Yeah. And then hence overwhelm and stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longer list is just setting yourself up straight away for overwhelm, isn't it? So it definitely makes sense just to make it more shorter and achievable.
Yeah. So for those of you who've got to stage 2 mind body practitioner, if you're doing a course that has mind body prac in it, we talk about Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a technique to just sort of count down in that split moment between a thought and an action in the brain and just go, just do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. But she also talks about a morning routine, and her to-do list always is a non-negotiable 3-step list. That's it. And she's got a Chocker's diary of what needs to be done. It's kind of like mine. So even Mel Robbins, who does all these amazing things and speaks and does lots and lots of lives and talks about this motivational aspect and this 5-second tool that she uses to get going and to get stuff done, she always creates a shorter, smaller list because the big, long list is just too much. And it's harder to get motivated if you've got too many things on that list because then there's no focus. So if you narrow it down and you only focus on these 3 things, it seems more reasonable and doable because you've got all day to do them. Although having said that, if you allocate a certain amount of time to a task, chances are you're going to take that much time to do it. So that's a whole other thing in your calendar to be realistic about, well, how long do I actually need to do this? So if I was just focused on this task, only on this task, how long would I realistically need to do it? Because if you focus on this and then come back to this and then you go back to that and then you're back to this, it's going to take you longer to do everything because you're multitasking. And the brain doesn't do multitasking very well. When you are focused on one main task, your executive network is in its zone and you're able to focus in on the task at hand and do it efficiently and quickly. But if you're multitasking, if you have distraction and your brain is trying to go from this task to this task, where was I up to with this one? Now I'm back to this one. Then your 2 hemispheres are actually working independently when you're multitasking. When you are focused in on one task at a time and you've got your executive network focused in on that task, then both brain hemispheres are working together to help you be more efficient. So you make less mistakes. It takes you a shorter amount of time to do it, and you can just get it done because you're focused. You're in the zone. So that's another reason to break down your list and just have a couple of things to focus on. And then the last thing that I like to do is use the habit tracker. So for those of you who got to module 4 in the holistic coaching foundations, the visual habit tracker, where you write down on the left-hand side what your top priorities are for that day and how many times you want to do it during the week. and then you mark it down once you've done it. So you keep it visual and you have that satisfaction of marking it down or colouring it out or ticking it or crossing it when you've done it. So that you're taking what you want to do on the paper, visual, keeping it with you, and then maybe employing your calendar on your computer or little reminder notifications or something like that, or you're keeping that appointment with yourself at 4 o'clock that I'm going to go out for a walk for 20 minutes at 4 o'clock around the block. That implementation statement. So those were my few things. And my last thing that I wanted to leave you with was allocating 3 or 4 days. This is going back to study. Allocating 3 or 4 days of the week to half or 1 hour of study, because that's better than nothing. Even if you have 30 minutes, even if you can only read 5 pages, even if you just answer one task in the workbook that you were up to, that's progress. That's forward movement. It doesn't have to be a lot to feel like you are moving forward, because small steps lead to big leaps. So it's just about being consistent. Small steps consistently help you move forward. So you don't need to try and do everything all at once or all today or get a whole huge chunk done because that's the only time you have this week. Just do what you can. So that's my input for some of the steps. What about you guys? What do you think of that?
Thanks, Vicky. I'll contribute. Thank you. It made me think about a lot of different things, actually, about how multitasking, and I heard something on a podcast just during the week about how women pride themselves on multitasking, and it's actually not something that people can do. Like, you actually can't do it. So it's something that we need to be mindful of. And I used to be an emergency nurse, so we used to multitask all the time. But, you know, it's a very superficial way of nursing because you're just on that surface and you're just managing what you can see or what needs to be done. And so I've got to be really mindful of that in a role as a coach, because you have to go deeper. So it was kind of like this bit of an aha moment where you're going, okay, that might be a pattern that I've established over many, many years. And I haven't been working in an ED for 8 years now, but I think it's a very well entrenched pattern. And again, like I said, something that society tells us to be proud of. So I think that was interesting. And also what you described around three goals or 3 activities or 3 things that you need to achieve during the day. And we've been learning this around in yoga around self-trust. So if we achieve those things, we start to trust ourselves that we can achieve them rather than not achieve anything. That's building that self-trust.
Success rather than
Excuse me, I've got a cold.
That's all right.
So they were just observations based on what you were saying. Thank you.
No, they're really great insights, because we do have a culture that encourages us to pride ourselves on how much we can do. And that leads to a sense of failure, that I can't do it, or I can't do as much as somebody else without feeling exhausted or tired. And it's just diminishing our self-esteem, feeling like we can't do something that society expects us to do. So if we forget about society and we focus on what can I achieve today by setting myself up for success in what I'm expecting myself to be able to do, just being realistic about what can I do. And I think, again, that comes back to what is most important for me to get done today. What is my top priority? What is my non-negotiable? And learning to be okay with just doing that.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm Tracy. I've been doing the multitasking and listening while I've been driving my daughter to gym. So it's ironic that we were just talking about multitasking, but now I'm sitting in the car and she's in the gym. I just wanted to add in, what happens if you have several different, because I'm bad at I'm good at multitasking, but I'm bad at the fact that I do it so much. And I found it really interesting what you were saying about using the both hemispheres of your brain. And it makes a lot of sense to focus on one thing at a time. And I essentially have 3 different jobs, 4 different jobs, 3 of which I work from home. So I'm trying to set myself up for something different, which is why I'm doing this course. So change of careers, change of lifestyle.
Yeah.
I find, though, in the meantime, I get a lot of pressure from people who expect a lot from me. And I can prioritize what I need to get done through the day. And just what you've suggested, I have recently started doing that myself, because I do take on more than what I think I should during a day. What do we do about people who expect too much?
That's when we start creating boundaries.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing. I can actually understand where you're coming from. I've been in the space of having 3 jobs and family expectations, etc., etc. And I had to do the hard thing of starting to really put up my walls and create my boundaries. And one of the tips that I'm going to give in relation to setting up your task is knowing what you value. What do you value? What is the things that you value? And that's one thing, even with my family, like my family very much rely on me, and I've made it very clear with them that these are what I value and these are my priority tasks and this is what I need to do. And so here's my boundary here. Anything outside of these things, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. And that's where a lot of people struggle with that word no. And that's the biggest thing that we need to learn. And that's how we create those boundaries, is creating that word no. And see, that's part of the overwhelm and taking on too much, is we struggle also with that word no and how to say it. And it is hard. It is definitely hard to say, but it's definitely something that as soon as you start learning, I had a friend say to me that she knew when I learned what my values were and what were best for me to prioritize, because I started to turn around when they'd say, oh, we're going to go out and do this and this today. And I'd say, thank you, but that's actually not within my values and I need to focus on this right now. So it's amazing how you can start the language you can use, which is no one takes offense to it, because they go, oh, okay, so that's, so you're not actually being horrible. You're just letting them know that, thank you for the invitation, or, yes, you would like me to do A, B, C, but this is what's within my realm and this is what I'm doing right now. And these are my priorities. Even to this day, I still have to say it to family, it's, my priority right now is that I have to jump on a workshop call with my work, and that's what I want to do and that's what I enjoy doing, because it's within my values and I enjoy doing it. So no, I can't come along to that movie that I'm not really that interested in, or I can't, so it's working out how to say no and create those boundaries around you for what's best for you, and what's within your. Yeah, so like, for example, you said about taking your daughter to the gym. Your daughter is a value of yours. She's your daughter. So, of course, you're going to say yes to that. And Mel Robbins talks about the difference between saying no to a value as opposed to saying no to something that you don't value. You don't actually feel guilty for saying no that's to something that you don't value. You feel guilty for saying no to something that you value. Whereas when you say no to something that's not within your values and not within what is best for you, because you don't want to let your daughter down. Of course you don't want to let your daughter down. You love her, you respect her, and she's, something that, you want to prioritize. Of course you're going to prioritize your family. And that comes back to what Vicky was talking about, your why as well. Your why is your values. Your values are part of your why. So does that all make sense, Tracy?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for that. It is it's a matter, I think, for me at this age, letting go of having done so much for the family for such a very long time and now working on things that I want to do for myself. But it's very true. And yeah, bringing my daughter to the gym, she's an athlete, so it's things like that we have to do. but then I have to multitask and do things like that, I guess, sometimes if I want to squeeze things in. But yeah, I do need to prioritize a little better, especially with some of my other work that I do for people. So that I do because I've just done it for such a long time, not necessarily because I want to do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Not a problem.
Go for it, Donna.
I'm really interested, based like Tracy, on your response then around, this need to multitask because you've got 1,000 things that you have to do and your kids need to be places. Is it our role, or we need to be really aware though that we shouldn't? There are times when multitasking is fine because it's not something that you're really invested in. So you can be cooking a dinner and, like we don't have to be mindful or present all the time. It's just for those big ticket items, or the big rocks as we call them in our family, those big things that we need to manage. Is that right?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a question mark. I don't, is that right? Because there's, yeah.
Tracy?
I guess if I was trying to multitask on two big things, it would be difficult to do, which unfortunately I do more often than I should. And I will add in here that I am one of the, and I hate labels, but if I was to label, I guess if somebody was to label me, I'd be an ADHD person. So I do find that I overwhelm myself just because of who I am. But it is true because so my daughter, I wasn't holding the phone, but she was driving because she's a learner. So I was listening while she was driving through the car stereo. So I guess to me, it wasn't I was still paying attention. And like what you were saying with the cooking, so you can be doing something else like cooking because cooking comes naturally. So if there's one thing that is not a task that takes up too much brain power, and then you can still multitask by doing something else at the same time. I don't know. I think I'm confusing everybody and confusing myself. I'm sorry.
Well, you're not. I mean, obviously the brain is going to prune away what it's not using so that it can be more efficient to do those habitual behaviors that we are accustomed to doing over and over and over through repetition. So there are going to be a lot of things that we do on a daily basis that we can do without thinking. And driving is actually one of them. Because, we when we get in the car, we know the motions. The only thing we really need to pay close, focused attention on is the other cars on the road. And when the light's about to turn red, things like that, people walking across the road. But the actual function of driving, the actual going through the motions of driving is so habituated that we know how to do it. We could do it without thinking. And when we're on a long stretch of road and we don't need to pay as much attention to movement going on around us, it's very easy for us to just go into default mode network and just start thinking and dreaming about other things while we're driving down the road. And effectively doing two things at once.
Same as what Donna was saying, when I did the course a couple of years ago, I used to have my tablet set up with the webinar going in the background while I was cooking and then while I was doing the dishes as well. So then I've actually studying, because again, cooking is a subconscious thing, especially if you know what you're cooking and you already know what you're working through. So of course I can cook, pasta, et cetera, and have the webinar going in the background. So I'm learning at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because when you're cooking, you're relaxed. I mean, and we're just, cooking is just one example. But things that you do habitually that just come naturally to you over time, you're doing them on autopilot. So you're not necessarily needing to be consciously aware of what you are doing. And if you enjoy the task, if it's relaxing to you, you're in a relaxed state and receptive to other input of information that's coming in that you are paying attention to. So a lot of our students, they go out for a walk, they go out for a run, they cook, they're doing maybe some dusting around the house, they're listening to the webinars, because you can listen or you can watch. It just depends on what kind of learner you are. Adapt to how you learn best. And it's like listening to a podcast or listening to a song on the radio that you're really into and you're singing the words, but you're just focused on the words when you're listening to a webinar while you're doing something that you do automatically anyway. So those kinds of things, yes, it's multitasking, but it's not really, because you're not actually trying to focus consciously on one of them. because it's something that you are doing unconsciously.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But like coming back to what I heard from what you were saying is that you said, I have to do this and I have to do that. And we were talking earlier about language, remember? So how does it feel to you when you say, I have to do this and I still have to do that, compared to, I get to drive my daughter to her, she's at the gym. She's not gymnastics, but just at the gym.
She's an AFL player and she's high level. So yeah.
I know way too much about AFL, being an AFL mum of an umpire for too many years. But okay, so I sympathize, I really do, because all that travel. But the thing is, this is what I had to really get into my head, because we live about nearly 2 hours away from the AFL headquarters in Brisbane, because we live inland. And, you know, we'd have to go down there twice during the week and then again on the weekends for games. And it's a 4-hour round trip just to get there. And AFL games are bloody long. They're like nearly 3 hours long. So it's a whole day. But to go down to train for nearly the amount of time that I'm in the car driving there, to be there for that same amount of time and then have to again drive back, was exhausting. But I used to say to myself, you know, I get to do this. I'm privileged that he wants to share this with me, that I get to see him excel at something that he is good at, that when he looks over to see if I'm watching, when he's doing a time trial, I'm watching. And I'm seeing that, I'm witnessing that, because very quickly it was over.
I agree. And I think that's exactly where I am with both my kids. I've got 2 very beautiful, talented children, and my daughter's skills are amazing. So I don't want to not do that. I just want to fit it all in. And I think the priority of have to do list is I've volunteered for the last 4 years for 2 music magazines, and I'm a freelance writer for them. And I have just got myself in the position where I practically help assist run them. And it's great because I'm learning a lot of skills, and I love it because I love music more than just about anything else. But it takes up so much of my spare time. So now it's the hierarchy of those places that just expect me to do so much. I'm being pulled from a lot of different directions. This is not about me. So I'm sorry. I feel like I've hijacked the conversation.
No, that's okay, because everybody's going to take something away from it. Yeah. What I really like to do is kind of open it up to the rest of you. If you had a client, if Tracy was your client, like Tracy, what is there something that you would like from the group in terms of as an exercise here? If we had a client that was being pulled in so many directions like you are, and personally I know that feeling, I have demands on me all the time from people expecting and wanting this and this and this, and I've got my own list of all kinds of things that I need to get done, that I want to get done, and that just absolutely need to be done, like a brand new website at the moment to replace our existing one, because we've got some incompatibility issues. It's impacting Google, and I need to get this new website done, and it's a shit ton of work because it's like 160 something pages that I have to create from scratch, and I've got so much to do. But I also have people wanting grad calls, and I have people wanting this, and I have people wanting that, and I have to cover somebody who's away for the next month doing assessments. So there's a lot coming at me. If you had a client who had a lot coming at them, who had a lot of expectations, who maybe took on more than they really needed to or could do, and wasn't necessarily affirming boundaries, how would you approach it? Like if you had a client that was struggling with those things and that was causing their overwhelm, what if any of the tools that we've given so far, we talked about so far, how would you approach it in helping them reduce that overwhelm? And I know that begins with, what does the client want to achieve? What does the client want to do? So Tracy, if you gave us an example, if you could change one thing about the situation at the moment that is causing you the most stress or overwhelm with having so much coming at you and pulling at you, what would that be? It's just for an example for us to discuss strategies for ourselves and clients.
I guess I would recommend to somebody who, if it was me talking, I would recommend that you take some time out and sit and work out what it is that you truly want to achieve.
what your main priority is, not from what is expected of you, but from what you really feel like you want to achieve, and then work out ways to minimize the work around that and prioritize the hours that you dedicate to certain things.
So really paring it back, getting focused, looking at the list, and then identifying which of these things are most important to me. Which ones do I value most, that I want to invest the most of my time or spare time into, and maybe even identifying why is that important to me? What am I going to get out of that? Like what I mean, that's going back to really associating that meaning. So great, that's a great strategy. Let's pick it up with somebody else who would like to jump in. What would you do?
I think the first step is the list, and then maybe the first question might be like working out how to tell anything, if there's anything there that you could delete. So asking yourself the question, of all these things on this list, if I wasn't already doing them, would I choose to do them? And sort of then going, if the answer is no, then maybe work out how to stop.
Yeah. Delete or delegate. What do you guys think of that? I like when you said delete, and the other thing that came into my head, well, if you can't delete it and stop doing it yourself, could you delegate it to somebody else? I've had to learn to delegate so I don't feel the need or the expectation to do everything myself, because I was doing that for years and I just can't do that anymore. I can't sustain that because there's just way too many people who want stuff. So if you could delete or delegate, I like that idea. Personally, I like that idea. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like it.
Nice one, Andy.
I like that idea too. I was just thinking along with that idea of, and I think Jay was kind of saying this earlier when she was saying what she was saying, is from your core values, like what really kind of like what makes you tick, you know, what looking at that list and deciding, is this really like an emergency? Does it need to be done, a priority? Or is it really something that could just be put off? Like it could just be put off and it's not a big deal. If it's not a big deal, then, and it could be done at any time, like Andy was just mentioning, delete it from the list for now.
Or leave it on that big list over there that isn't going anywhere. Like I won't forget it if it's on that list, but at least I have to focus on it and keep having it come up at me going, you have to do this, you have to do yes. And look, I'm not usually a big list writer. My cousin, who I'm very close to, is a huge list writer. Even if you buy her a journal, she has pieces of paper with lists on all over the place, and she somehow knows where they all are. I don't know. But anyway, so, you know, you might like lists, and that might actually be good to brain dump all the things that the person or your client or you think you need to do. But then when you get it out of your head and you put it down on the paper and you go through it and you really ask yourself, is this important to me? Is this a top priority? Is this something that I actually want to do? Can I delete it? Can I delegate it? Then what do you think is going to happen to the list? It's going to, the list is going to be condensed. But then if you take from that list the top 2 or 3 things per day, then again, you're narrowing it down to just the top priorities that you want to do, that are important to you and that are manageable because there's only a couple of them. Yeah.
Can I also throw, to go a little deeper, I grew up in a family where I was told that you had to be busy. So if I sat down and rested, so it's a limiting belief for me that I have to constantly be doing something. And if I sit and stop, I was made to feel guilty for it. So if I sat and stopped, I felt guilty. And so I thought that I had to constantly be doing something. And once I did the course and learnt about values and things like that, and being able to put up boundaries and realize I don't constantly busy, because I'm just constantly overwhelmed then. And I've constantly, you know, it was that you hear people where it's like, well, I have all this to do. Oh, well, I actually, my mum was very competitive with me in that type of space where she made me feel like, oh, well, I've got more to do than you. And that, working through with your clients, do they hold that type of limiting belief? And that's why that they're doing all this extra stuff and believe that they need to be doing all this. One of the things I've learned in the last couple of years is exactly what you said, Chantel. I looked into my values and went, right, these are my top 5 values. Now, out of these top 5 I'm doing in my life that are completing these values, and I actually, each month, I reevaluate what I'm doing in my life. And so at the end of last year, I was very fortunate and got the job with Mind Body Food. Am I cutting out? No, it's okay.
You were, but you
I was very okay. I was very fortunate and got the job with Mind Body Food. I also met my partner who has 2 kids, and I knew that my 3 top priorities, especially during that time, had to be those 3 things. And so I had to put I put other things that, yes, I would like to be doing these things, but I did go to myself, they're not my priority right now. So I'm going to just put them over here. They will still be there. So I'm a big runner, love running. And I had a marathon in my mind, but I knew at that time why I prioritized spending time with my new partner, meeting his kids, starting this new job, learning what I needed to do in my job, etc., etc. I couldn't run as much, but that's okay because running was still always going to be there. I could still do it. I just couldn't prioritize it the same way that I would when I've got a bit more time. So it's also working out what at that time in your life is your top, so right now for all of you, it would be studying this course. That's in your top 3 to 4 priorities. So that's something that when you start each week or when you start each month, how can I make sure that I fit the course into my week or into my month? And, let my family and friends know, yes, that's great, but this is my priority right now. So I do look at it all from that perspective as well. I don't know if people agree with that. What are people's thoughts on how I've approached that one?
I think it's a good idea because as life changes, your priorities change, and it's re-evaluating your priorities. And even though they may not necessarily be at the same level, like they might not be number 1, it can still be a priority, but 3 or 4. So we're never the same any 2 days. So we need to constantly be reevaluating what it is that's important to us in life.
Yeah, which means we have to stay connected to what's important to us and
absolutely
feel totally okay about putting 5 minutes aside for ourselves each day just to tune in and ask ourselves, what is my top priority today? What is the most important thing to me today? What am I willing to not do today in order so that I can create space and time for something else that is my priority today?
Yes, that's so true. And as an example of that, I have survived up until last week of not getting COVID the whole time. The pandemic's been happening. And in July, it was such an overwhelmingly busy month with work people off, working double shifts, and my son's 18th birthday party. And I'm also a marriage celebrant, so lots of weddings, strangely, for winter, that I wasn't meditating every day like I usually do, and I wasn't going to yoga, and I wasn't going to the gym, and I caught COVID. So I think that really made me realize how important self-care was, and putting value into the things that are important for yourself as well as everybody else.
Yeah, and that kind of highlights that what do you value most? For some people it might be, well, I value my health, because if I have health, then I have the time and the energy to do the things that I want to do and be there to be for the people, for the people that I want to be with, and be there for. So again, that's sort of reiterating every day, tuning in, checking in. What is my top priority today? Why is this important to me? Or what am I willing to move aside today so that I do have time for myself? Or what one little self-care thing can I do for myself today, and what time am I willing to do it, or what time am I going to commit to do that? Donna, you've been wanting to say something, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you. Oh, no, it was just kind of thinking back to the practical idea that was shared early around diarising and colour coding. And I remember doing a course once, and you've all talked about, if you've got a list, it's do it or delete it or whatever. But if there's something there that's still a priority for you, but you don't have time, maybe that's when we can diarize it and do that, like get it in a diary. So, you know, look, I'm not doing it today, but it's there on Friday. I know it's there. That's a non-negotiable come Friday, but you've actually taken it out of your consciousness for the next couple of days, but it's a non-negotiable in a few days, and it's already moved into your calendar. And that might be a practical way to manage that overwhelm as well.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about in module 3 leading into module 4 with the implementation statement or implementation intention, that you decide a time, a place, and you make that statement, you create that statement, and then you put it in the calendar so that you know on this day, at this time, I will be at this place doing this. Yeah, because you can't forget it then, because you've made the time to know exactly what time, where, and what I'm doing. And I put it in a calendar. That's my time. That's non-negotiable. I might not be able to do it today, but I'm going to commit to doing it on that day this week. So I know that I'm going to get it done and I look forward to it. Yeah, great. Yeah. Anyone else want to contribute about strategies that you could use with a client who is feeling overwhelmed about how much they have to do? We've talked about values. We've talked about identifying why something is important and meaningful, which ties in with values, and the priority of what is most important to me to get done today. And then diarising and the do it, delete it, delegate it, which is great. You could create a column and put do it, delete it, delegate it. And once you've gone through and had your client brain dump all the things that they're feeling overwhelmed by, that they feel or think need to be done, that they can alone only do, then once they brain dumped all of those things and they can see what's causing the overwhelm visually on the page, then you can ask them, put it into a column. Which ones do you actually want to do? Put it in the do it column. Which one can you delete because you actually realize I don't need to do that? It's not on me to do that. Or which one can you delegate to somebody else so that it gets done, but it's not always falling onto you to do it? And that would then probably lead into boundaries, boundary setting, learning to set a healthy boundary. And like Jay said earlier, you can set a boundary in a healthy way for you that's also being polite and respectful to the other person. And you can help prepare your clients to say what they need to say so that they feel comfortable and confident prior to whoever they need to speak to, so that they know exactly what they're going to say and they feel prepared and ready to say it. Thank you so much for inviting me to do that, or thank you so much for thinking of me or asking me to do that, or I know that you'd like me to do that today, but I have a few top priorities that are on my non-negotiable list today, and that is what I need to stay focused on. Perhaps I can help you tomorrow, or maybe on Wednesday I'll put some time in my diary and help you with that. You know, whatever feels comfortable and natural. So what we're going to finish up soon because we're coming to an hour. Does anyone want to jump in and share what else we could sort of be mindful of in talking to our clients about overwhelm and prioritizing and the things that we've discussed today? Would you add anything to that you could employ in your sessions or that you might start using for yourself?
Yes, I would love to add one thing, suggest one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to find a few minutes for yourself before we start the day, because we all living busy lives and we all have our tasks to do during the day. But if you will find 10, 15 minutes in the morning, just for ourselves, to a little breathing or stretches, yoga, or even meditation, just to start the day, just to calm down our minds, our brains. And I think it's really, really good because for me, it's a must in the morning. That's how I start my morning, every morning, because I feel really relaxed. And when my mind is relaxed, then I can think clearly. This is what I'm going to do today. I had my moment for myself. I feel calm, I feel relaxed, I can tackle anything. So even a little suggestion, just to start the day, think about yourself first. 5-10 minutes, do whatever you want to do. Drink a coffee in a peace, meditate, read the book, meditate, stretch, yoga, run, whatever. But start the day with things that are best for you, for your health.
Excellent. I started adopting that this year, my year of self-care, and it's made a huge difference to just take some time for myself in the morning, make sure I have my water, make sure I have some greens or whatever I'm having, and have that time to myself just to have a slower, more purposeful, intentional 15, 30 minutes to myself to make sure I'm having some water, I'm eating breakfast before I then go into the office and start my day. Yeah. One of the other things that I would add to that is actually setting yourself up the night before by writing down, using the gratitude journaling, writing down anything that's bothering you and going through those processes of, and these are things, mind body relaxation tools that you learn in Mind Body Practitioner, brain dumping all the things that are bothering you and then going through the 4 steps to work out a possible solution so that you've got all of the worrying out of your head, you've got it on the paper, you've got a strategy so you know what to do and when you're going to do it, and then refocusing on, despite what happened today, what am I grateful for? What good things happened today, even though there were some really crappy things? And then if you finish on that by having a routine before you get into bed that allows you to truly then switch off, if your mind's brain dumped all the stuff it's worrying about, it's got solutions and it's refocused on positive thoughts that you're proud of or happy that you got done or achieved or experienced during the day, then listen to a meditation, watch a funny show, read a book, listen to, a podcast or a little bit more of the webinar or yoga, whatever it is, have a hot bath. Give yourself that gift of winding down, letting go of the day. For me, it's been working out for this year and just letting go of the stress of the day and shifting that energy so that I can then refocus on myself. Your brain and your body, your nervous system is much more able to shift into that relaxed state that you need in order to have that restful, deep sleep. And if you have that restful, deep sleep and you wake up in the morning and then you give yourself those 5 minutes, like Paulina was saying, you're setting yourself up the night before for that morning that you want to have just for you for 5 minutes to set your day. And that might be when you write down your top priorities and know exactly what is it that's most important to me today that I want to get done. Just looking at it from the perspective of the night before.
And Vicky, before we finish up, are you happy for me just to add a couple of really quick tips?
Please do, yes.
Yeah. So a couple of tips that I do each day. One is I know the time of day that my brain is most active. So when you're doing things like study or you've got a major project due or things like that, you generally know what time of day is best to do it for your brain. So for me, I know that between 8 and 11 a.m., my brain is very active. So that's when I'm going to do the task, like a major project that I've been procrastinating on or study that I keep putting aside. And then 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. is my other time. So they're the best times to, if you know that your brain's more active at that time, set aside that time for your study or set aside that time for when you need to complete something, and you could say read up to page 15 of module 1 between, 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. So that's one of the tips I use. I reward myself when I complete a major task. So once I've done that period of time, because our brains can actually only focus for a period of time. And once I've done that, I'll go, excellent, I've just achieved all of that. I'm going to go and grab a cuppa now and a biscuit and enjoy that for a second before I take on my next task.
It's around 25 minutes or so that you start to get a bit fatigued and wander. So, yeah.
So I always reward myself, or even if I complete my 3 things today, I can go down to the shops and buy myself my favorite chocolate or, just something that makes you, or I'm going to sit and relax and enjoy a bath tonight. So something that kind of it gives you that incentive. We all do like that incentive. It does help us to work towards what we're after. In relation to what Paulina was saying in the mornings, I do a morning visualization. So I visualize what my intention is for that day. And I visualize what I want it to look like. So if I've got for example, a big run coming up, I'll lay there for that 5-10 minutes. And there's plenty of on YouTube, on Spotify, on Insight Timer, on lots of meditation apps, 5 to 10 minute meditations. And they're specifically on visualization, where you can visualize how you want to set up your day and how you want it to look. And that has been proven that you will have a more successful day to ones that you don't do that. And afterwards, you can quickly journal how you want that to look. Or you might think, oh, no, I think this priority task is more important than that one. So that's when you can write down your priority task. And as Vicky mentioned earlier, of course, there's the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's one of my favorites. I'm crazy. Vicky and her and the team always laugh at me when I say, oh yeah, it's 7 o'clock in the morning and I've already gone for a 10-kilometer run. And they're like, how have you done that? It's still dark. You're crazy. But I use that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As soon as my alarm goes off, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. I've already got my clothes ready to go. They're beside the bed. Throw them on. I'm out the door. I don't even give myself a chance to even think otherwise. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and go. And that's the same as studying as well. I can 100% agree with sometimes it's like, oh, I really don't want to read this document, or I really don't want to do this. But then I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, grab a cup of tea, sit down, right, let's get into it for the next half an hour. So yeah, they're my few tips that you can, suggest. But also remember, one of the things we always say when you're suggesting things to your clients, you don't want to overwhelm them. So why are you overwhelming yourself? Like when you set up your client with a task to take away or a goal to achieve for that week, you're only going to set up 1 or 2 minor things
that they're going to choose, so that they want to actually show up and do it.
Exactly.
You tell them what to do, they're going to be like, well, I don't have any meaning associated with that. I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel great to me. So always let them choose. Give them some ideas and suggestions, but ultimately let your client choose. Well, which task, which one of these sounds great for you to do this week? Which one resonates with you the most? Which one are you willing? Which one can you see yourself doing this week to help set you up for success?
And so, you're not going to set them more than just one task. So why are you setting yourself up for achieving more than just that 1 or 2 things? Because if you set them more, you're going to overwhelm them. So you're doing the same thing for yourself. So yeah, they're my thoughts and suggestions. I know we've run out of time now, so I just wanted to throw them in for the end.
Awesome, thanks. One of the things that I say to the students who ask us about procrastination or overwhelm in relation to study is that because the way that I have written the coaching and mind-body modules, it's all about learning and applying that knowledge. So you're applying a lot of insight, self-reflection, growth. You're getting to know yourself through doing the exercises, reflecting on them, seeing how it made you feel and interpreting that, so that you have a better idea of how your clients are going to be experiencing doing those exercises and what possible benefits, or what definite benefits, but also what possible insights they're going to gain from it. So that helps you stay engaged. If something's meaningful to you, if you're learning more about it and it's exciting and it's interesting, or your brain is curious, the brain loves to be curious because it wants to process things to the very end and get the answer. That's why it keeps repeating some of those things that we don't process from past experiences and that keep blocking us from being able to move forward. So if we take that engagement and that love of learning and those insights, then often that helps you keep motivated, because you're learning how to shift old thoughts and feelings and behaviors, and you're learning more about yourself, and you're staying engaged with the content because you're getting so much out of it. And you're constantly thinking of, well, how could I use this with a client in session? And then when you get to the practical stage, you're propelled to keep going and working with clients, because you'll just ignite your love of being in that session, connecting with people on that deeper level. So all of those things create sacred time that's just for you to work on this course, because you're going to be more connected to the reasons why you're doing it. Would anyone like to just kind of leave a thought with us before we say bye-bye? Or just share what's the biggest takeaway that you've actually got from today that you're going to maybe use for yourself or with a client? Because just articulating that sometimes is just solidifying that thought or that idea in your own mind and committing to it when you take it away from here. Anyone want to share?
The top 3 list is amazing. Sorry.
Who'd like to go? Tracy, you just had a statement, I think. So what did you say?
I said the top 3,
Yep.
prioritizing the top 3 is a really good idea.
Awesome. Yeah, I think so. Faye?
I really liked what Jay said with using your brain at the most active times, because I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves just to expect the same high standards throughout the day.
I like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, because I have a tendency to think too long about doing something, and then I talk myself out of doing it.
When you probably could have got it done by the time it took to think about it and then talk yourself out of it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
procrastinate. Yeah, that's it. 5, 4, 3. Just do it. If you think about it too much, then yeah, you're going to come up with reasons why you don't want to do it or why it's going to be taking too long. And yeah, I could have just done it. Yeah, it's a really great tool for that. Eileen, Paulina, Andy, did you want to share what's your biggest takeaway from today before we go?
Do it, delete it, delegate it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's been a really good one that's come up today. Awesome. Do it, delete it, delegate it. The 3 Ds. I like it. Cool. Paulina, Andy? Thanks, Eileen.
Oh, I think if we just do all of that stuff, we'll just be great. All at once.
But then that would be overwhelming to try and do all of that, wouldn't it? Defeat the purpose.
Yeah, for me, definitely to keep 3 things on the list, because I tend to, especially on my day off, I tend to wake up and my mind is already buzzing. I've got so much to do. So just prioritize 3 things, concentrate, do my meditation in the morning, have it done. And do not spend too much time on them as well.
Yeah. Awesome. It sounds like the majority is if you keep your to-do list just to 2 or 3 top priorities that you value the most, the things that you really absolutely want to get done today, that is more important, non-negotiable than anything else, it actually makes your to-do list doable.
Mm-hmm.
You get to actually achieve what's on your to-do list, and that makes you feel good. It motivates you to do more things the next day, staying within that limit of just your top 3 priorities. Awesome. All right, well, we've had some great discussions and ideas and tools and strategies. And I know we stayed focused more on tools and approaches and exercises today. We didn't delve into, the stress and the mindset of the fear that might be underlying why someone doesn't take action, fear of success, fear of failure, or fear of I might look like an idiot if I do that, or, all those kinds of things. But that's a conversation for another power hour. So I'll be doing I think I'm going to do one on self-care practices, just a fun one in about 2 weeks' time on the 24th. But in the meantime, next Monday and Tuesday, an AM and a PM, we are doing a Marketing Your Signature Program training, which is designed to be a part 2 from the creating or designing your signature program that I did about a month and a half ago. So if you don't have a signature program yet, doesn't matter. It's good to watch the other one. But if you're nowhere near the final business stages yet, don't feel like you have to. It's going to be there. It's like that big to-do list. It's not going anywhere. It'll be there and it'll be ready for you when you get to those modules. But that's what we've got coming up for Marketing Your Signature Program next week. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here and having a nice chat with us. We've had some great ideas tossed around, so hopefully they'll be beneficial and helpful for you, and also give you some ideas and things that you can employ, not just for yourself, but with your clients as well.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to finish the meeting for all of us, and this replay will be inside Guide 9 of the Facebook group. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.